Boy, what a great time to grow, isn't it? Is there a shortage of things to transform in our lives? I don't know. I don't think there's anything that can't be shifted a little bit. And all of it is always shifted when love's intention is behind it. And love's intention is the presence of God. So right now, we've the second day of the season for nonviolence, and I know that you all have participated in the season for nonviolence. And in case you don't know, it's a 64-day period between the memorial anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King. And it started yesterday, January 31st, and it goes on till April 4th. And I was blessed to be in the very first one in Chicago. And it was just such an inspiring thing 18 years ago. And we all came together with this incredible energy that Dr. Michael Beckwith and several other people came together knowing that we needed to implement the ideas and the practices that New Thought shares with the world. So one of the backbones of my talk today is the idea of the season for nonviolence, and my favorite quote by Dr. Holmes, "Love points the way, and the law makes the way possible." But my focus is love pointing the way. And how many ways is love pointing? And we'll take a look at that. So my whole talk is about love's intentionally, how love is intentional, and some of the ways to be intentional ourselves. And the major way is to do no harm. So raise your hand if you think that you could deepen your connection with Spirit and the people that you love most. Ah, that's a pretty good show of hands. Let's open the doors to our heart today and deepen that connection as we invite the presence of Spirit into our life more deeply. And it doesn't have to be manipulated. It can just come forth in you as we discuss these things. And the reason it comes forth is because of something that Buddha said, that all spirituality is really a relieving of any kind of suffering. And we see suffering in ourselves and all over the world. So love cannot sit on the fence. Love always aims itself and directs itself into some expression, some form. So as we realize that love aims itself and it's purposeful, we'll take a look at what does love bring up in your life. Now, it brings up everything unlike itself, not to make you feel bad about what's going on, but to give you an opportunity to pray for or use our teaching to move the right energy of Spirit into that place. So Dr. Michael Beckwith always says, anything that's going on in the world that is bothersome or greatly concerning us, that's a call for prayer. And so instead of getting stuck in the issue, it's an immediate call for treatment. And for us to just say, okay, if I don't like what's going on, I'm particularly bothered about the way things are going on in nature and what's going on in the planet and the way some children have no homes. There's so many people that are homeless. That bothers my heart, and I really feel that everyone deserves a place to live and the food that they need. God created enough. So our challenge, we know, is to see love in the place of whatever is going on. And that's a realization that it's our nature and love's nature to go exactly where it's needed to go. So everyone in this world, everything is having a relationship with Spirit. We're blessed to have a relationship with Spirit that is more conscious and becomes ever more conscious the more in yoga we say, the more we live in our spine. And I remember last time I told you to put your hand on the bottom of your spine and your other hand at your third eye. And the reason is when you start getting off center, or if you anchor yourself in your spine, as our yoga teachers know, that it helps us to be in a greater equilibrium, and we have more access to our intelligence in all of our body, mind, and spirit. So a wonderful, wonderful spiritual practice that I'd like you to do with me right now is to consciously see God in everyone. That everyone that is here, everyone everywhere, is a reflection of God. So we're going to practice that right now. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes and see someone that you have some kind of judgment about. And think about, for just a second, what you don't like about them, what bugs you. Now, see God in them as a divinely created miracle, as an expression of God, and see them perfect just the way they are. So just focus for just a second. And mentally, before you close the book on that right this moment, mentally bow and say, Namaste. The light within me honors the light within you. God within me honors God within you. So you can open your eyes. If any of you are struggling with this, that's your next assignment to work on. Because anytime something comes up, it's love giving us a way, an opportunity to see the light of God in that situation. Because love always, light casts out darkness and love casts out fear. And when we shut down to someone, it's because fear has gotten in the way. So fear-based thoughts cause us to judge somebody or ourselves. We don't even know when it rubs up against us, and we don't always catch it. And we can go right into the reaction without realizing what's going on, that they've intruded somehow on our comfort zone. And I wanted to share this story with you. I was at this market recently, and this very attractive young man and his daughter walk in to the market, and then I noticed a silver ring in his nose. And I was bothered by it. Because my head went, gosh, what a nice looking young man and his beautiful daughter. And why is he wearing that ring in his nose, It's like, and then I could see, I had to shift my gear and go, okay, red flag. I decided to see God in him and to stop judging him because it would distance me. So instead of looking at him with judgment, I decided to recognize him as a divine being. And God knows me so well that he gave me something exactly that would push my buttons, because I have some judgments about certain things like that. And I want to just love them and not see them, but all I see is that ring in their nose. And it bothers me because the guy looked like Jesus. He was so beautiful. And I'm going, Jesus with a ring in his nose. Okay. So I had to just loosen up about it. And then before they left the market, I saw him as just a beautiful being, and I no longer saw this big in his nose. So what I'm challenging you with, and what I'm doing, giving myself assignments with, is I decided to have fun with this stuff. Instead of going, oh, what are you judging them for? And then triggering that same judgment on myself because I'm not perfect and I still have things that I need to work on. The reality is, if we're on the planet, we have stuff to work on. So when we're done, we probably won't be here. So the reality is, let's enjoy it. It doesn't have to be all hard work. Spiritual work is hard work most of the time. But this kind of stuff doesn't have to be hard work. We can just lighten up about it. And that's what I decided. I'm going to have fun with this. And it doesn't have to be hard. And the reason is, Carl Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like contact of two chemicals, substances. If there's any reaction at all, there's a transformation for both. So there was a transformation in me And even though I didn't get to check it out with him, I didn't go up to him and go, I was judging you for that ring in your nose. And I worked it out. I see God in you. I couldn't do that. But I did do it on the unseen side of things. And in reality, we know that in the silence, in the deep inner sanctuary, that's where most everything happens anyway. Anything on the outer is farther away from the substance of truth. And so as we look at this today and we realize God is love, and love is our most elevated state of mind. It's the divine within us, and it's always wanting to share its love. It's always trying to bring forth that nature in us. One of the things I've noticed as a science of mind teacher for a long time, I started off as a practitioner like some of you wonderful souls. And I remember the first time I came up at Dr. Peggy's church, and I was petrified because there was 3,500 people. And I'm going, oh my God, So, and I kind of shaking, and I don't know what came out of my mouth, but it was okay. I lived through it. So we often think, coming from the science of mind, because it's a mental practice, or from a yogic point of view, it's called jnana yoga, or knowledge, the yoga of knowledge. Science of mind is a yoga of knowledge. And we often think it's a rational process, but that's just the appearance. That's just one layer of it. We enter into the science of mind through the door of knowledge. But Dr. Holmes said, love points the way, and the law makes the way possible. Yes, we're looking at how the law works and how we use it in our life, but it's love that is pointing the way. So we have to ask ourselves, when anything's going on, what is happening on a deeper level? And how do I get a more expanded view? The only way to get a really clear picture is to know that wisdom, true wisdom, divine wisdom, is a combination of our head and our heart. And from the wisdom of the intelligence of the universe and the love that's behind it. So one of the things we do say in yoga is a shorter path to wisdom is concentrating at the spiritual eye in deep meditation. How many of you meditate or have some guy, short or long, it doesn't matter. If you don't, that's okay. There's so many incredible tools, and I bet there's several people here that are willing to help you learn how to meditate. There's lots of different kinds of meditation, and you can find the one that works best for you. Love's intention is always about giving itself away. Its goal is to bless. Its goal is to enliven. Its goal is to uplift and expand the truth in us and all around us so that we can experience our oneness. It's a sweet invitation to the presence of Divine Mother, who's always saying, I love you. Come home. I've been waiting for you to realize I am here. The presence of God is both masculine and feminine. It doesn't matter which way you want to look at God, because it's all just your perception. God is the vastness of the universe, much more than any one of us can take in from this plane of existence. And love is always opening the doors and the windows of our hearts. Now, it might be doing it directly, because we're having, one of my frequent heart melters is my dog, Shanti, who's a little Shih Tzu, and he's very spoiled, and he knows how to get me, and he just yaps, and there I am. Sometimes I go, stop, I gotta concentrate. I was working on my talk, I was telling him yesterday, you can't disturb me all the time, and he's looking at me with this cute little face. And I go, okay. I took care of everything he could possibly need, and then I realized he just wanted me to play with him and his toys, and I really didn't have the time to do that, but I had to play with him a little bit or he wouldn't be quiet. So I had to take charge of my reaction to him and stop letting him bother me. And then as soon as I did, guess what? He stopped bothering me. So when we catch our reactions to something or someone, and we realize that we're not in our head and our heart, we're in our head, or we're in our reactions or something, we have to realize that the universe is giving us an opportunity to practice ahimsa, which is doing no harm to ourselves or others, or our fragile little egos of our dogs, or the wonderful people in our life. Doing no harm, love does no harm to ourselves and others. Now, most of the people in spiritual practice, most of the people on the spiritual path, they have no trouble being of service to other people. They're ready to give of their time and their attention and their treasure, their money, and everything else. But what I'm noticing is that we're not so good at taking very good care of ourselves internally, in the quiet spaces of our mind. Not everybody, some of you are really a lot better at than the rest of us. And here's a story for you. A friend of mine named Jane and John, they lived in the spiritual community where I live. And after they were married for a year, they've lived there for 40 years, by the way. So this was an old story, but she shared it with me. And after being married for a year, John said to Jane, and her name isn't Jane anymore, but her name is Savitri now, but John said to Jane, Jane, you know, I have never met a more generous, kind, and giving person than you. You are always there for everybody. You treat everyone with kindness. You're empathetic. You're available. You rarely say no, if ever. But what I did notice is that you don't treat yourself in the same way that you treat other people. And many of us could take a look at that idea and say, yeah, I have that problem too. Sometimes I don't know how to treat myself with the same harmlessness as I treat the other people. So when I recognize that I've got some self-talk that is endless, that of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and I should have done this, or I should have gone there, or why didn't I get this done, or that whole litany of things that our brain just keeps spitting out until we take a hold of it and say, okay, I'm going to practice letting this go easily. Now, if you were here the last time I was here, we put it in the sacred fire. Remember, how many of you were here last time? Okay, so I'm going to give you a practice that's the same thing, except you have the fire burning all the time. That fire that's burning is at your third eye. And anything that comes up that's negative in your mind, I want you to give it to Divine Mother or give it to God at your third eye and just see that there's a fire burning in the astral plane, and just give it up. Give the issue up. Take it up from the bottom of your tush to the top of your third eye if you're so inclined, and just go to your third eye and put it in there as if you wrote it out on a piece of paper and put it into the fire. The reason we do this is because we're transmuting the energy. We're calling forth the energy of purification, and we're changing our energy and our relationship with that. So it's really important to keep moving that energy. Don't let it get stuck in you. If it's a negative self-talk, or you're really criticizing yourself, or you're angry about something, you keep repeating it. Place it in the sacred fire at your third eye. So this is a practice of harmlessness to yourself. And if we're not loving toward ourselves, and I don't mean overly, oh, I'm so beautiful and I'm just so wonderful, don't you love me the way I am, and it's not that kind of thing. It is really about embodying the nature of love that we really are as children of the Most High, and practicing the presence. So I want you to close your eyes again. And the part of you that has some negative self-talk about yourself, Just see that idea, or remember the last time you might have been putting yourself down. Put it in the sacred fire right now, at your third eye, mentally. And just imagine this purifying fire, and give it over to Spirit with love. And as if you are facing the mirror of divine consciousness, see yourself receiving your love and your acknowledgement. And say mentally, Namaste. The God within me honors the God within you. I'm not trying to turn you into a schizophrenic. I just want you to know that you have a higher self. And it's not confined to this body that we're in. It's much larger than that. It's your higher Holy Spirit self, the Course in Miracles might call it. It's the altar of your presence. Now, what we're doing here today is we're practicing doing no harm, and we're implementing practices that help us to let go of the energy that we accumulate that's negative, or that is accumulating negative energy. So Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, number 33, is about being aware of the negative thoughts that we have and the reactions that disturb us. We just did an exercise of that. Now, I know you guys have never heard of mental equivalence before, have you? Well, this is where it might have come from, because in this Yoga Sutra it says, take those negative thoughts and that disturb us and think of the opposite point of view. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who used to teach this stuff, and she goes, what are mental equivalents? And I'm going, seriously? You don't remember what mental equivalents are? Well, but she has been practicing something else. It's been a long time, apparently. So I was nice and didn't say what went into my thoughts, which wasn't good, because I'm going, oh, why did you forget that? But anyway, she did, and I got to look at my judgments again. They're all over the place, you know? And so in my gentleness with myself, I have to go, okay, I'm not going to make this into a major bonfire. I'm just going to go, okay, put that in the sacred fire. That's it. I don't want to judge her. I don't want to judge myself. Because as soon as I judge her, the next thing is I'm going to judge me for judging her. Right? Because you feel that. Those of us who are working on this stuff don't want to go there. So then we get mad at ourselves. And it's darkness. So Martin Luther King said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So we must embody love if we want to transform the world we live in. And who else here was a hippie? Or still is? Yeah. So many of us were out there picketing. You know, he's a little obvious. I have a shirt like that, too. I don't wear it because it has the farm on it, and I live at Ananda, so it might be a slight conflict of interest, but not much. Anyway, so I want to share a story with you about practicing what we're talking about. And this story is about a friend of mine named Erica and her sister Sue. They had a contentious relationship all of their life. It never stopped. Even though they saw each other once a year, that contentious relationship went on when they saw each other every Thanksgiving. It was always a disaster. And this year that I'm talking about, she's driving on her way to the Thanksgiving dinner from, she was living in North Carolina, and she's driving to Atlanta to her family. And she was just not wanting to go. Because every year the same things come up with her and her sister Sue, and she just didn't want to go there this year. And so she practiced something different. She decided, no matter how crazy, no matter how absurd or how stupid her sister's comments were, Erica decided that she was going to love her anyway, and that she was not going to correct her. She was not going to disagree with her. She was not going to offer another way to look at it. This was clearly her practice before. And try to show her ways to see things differently. She wasn't going to try to control her. She was just going to love her. Well, for the first time in her life, Erica had spent the afternoon with her sister Sue, completely enjoying her company. She couldn't remember ever having that experience with her. Erica was amazed that her sister was funny, she was charming, and she never said anything she disagreed with. She can't ever remember a time when that happened. So what caused the transformation? She changed her thoughts. She changed her perspective. She changed her mind about it. And the power of her intentional love shifted the whole experience, and what showed up was unconditional love. And it opened up that relationship, at least that day. I don't know what happened the next year. But for the first time in her life, her sister Sue could feel safe with Erica, because Erica's a little opinionated like the rest of us, and she felt safe to be in her place, in her environment, and she was able to relax. And both of them relaxed, because there wasn't that energy, because everybody feels it. When we have that kind of energy towards somebody, they know. And if we think they don't know, we're only fooling ourselves, because there's only one mind in whom we all live, move, and have our being. And the power of our mind goes right to the person that we're judging. Goes right, all the issues that we have going on in us, they're feeling it. So that's why it's so important to keep clearing the energy, place it on the sacred fire, and let it be transmuted. That's how we create peace as a process. It's one of the processes that I use regularly. And I use the sacred fire all the time. I place whatever it is on the sacred fire. Sometimes I do it literally, like we did here. Sometimes, every day, I put it at my third eye. That's so I let go of something, and my habitual reactions. So if we don't teach children to do no harm, then they see no harm in doing harm. We teach them to do harm if we don't teach them not to. So that's how generation after generation after generation of abuse continues. Somewhere, somehow, we have to stop the process by teaching something new, by practicing something new. So still sadder is when we bear witness to our actions and never learn to do no harm, those children will bear witness to our actions, and they will never learn to do no harm. And that's how that continues. So it's a moral responsibility to learn to to practice doing no harm, and to teach them how to practice doing no harm. It's to help them feel and experience a greater respect and a greater consciousness. This is what they inherit from our generation, is that we saw that the Vietnam War was wrong. As a group, we all went up and said, no more. And there are other things that are in our face right now. And I'm not suggesting that we get out there with banners, because I'm not going to do it. I did it before. I mean, it's going to have to really get me stirred up for me to get out there and do it. But I will stand up for what I believe. And it's important. When something is wrong, when there's abuse going on, we have to stop and say, wait a minute, this is abuse. And this is elder abuse, or this is, violence against animals, or whatever it is that you feel strongly about. Don't just let it go by, because that's endorsing the problem. So, least of all, it's not least, do a prayer treatment. Speak your heart and know for that situation that there's a transmutation of the energy so that we honor it. so we can watch the shift. So Maya Angelou said, whenever you enter a room where someone loves you, they're always looking into your eyes and your face, and they're saying, do you see me? Do you hear me? Does what I say matter to you? That's what they're saying. That's what all of us are saying. And in other words, they're saying, am I safe with you? You know, am I loved with you? Or am I on trial? That is a very important awareness for us to have. And I want to share with you because in long-term relationships, we stir things up a lot instead of taking them as we all have fragile hearts. And we all need to practice gentility with ourselves and with others. We all need the love, and we all need the compassion. And we all need to admit it. Because if we don't learn to ask for what we want, we can't just go to each other and go, can you help me today? I'm really hurting. But sometimes we can say that. But if that's our constant story, who needs to do the work? I do, on myself. And I have to learn how to do it. And if I don't know how to do it, I have to go to people that do know. And so that we can help each other. And that's the beauty of community. There is nothing that takes place in spiritual community because we support each other so much. We've got a beautiful community. And it's great. I feel the love when I come here. And I know that you care about each other so deeply. And that's wonderful. I want to share another story with you. And it's another true story. And it's a simple and fast solution to putting love into action to deepen a relationship. For years, a close friend of mine was a corporate trainer. And she taught empathic listening. And it's great to have someone like that as your close friend. So for homework, she gave this to these corporate people. She gave an assignment to practice empathic listening with the people at home. And then she said, tomorrow, at the beginning of the day, I want you to share some of your stories and tell me what happened. So the next morning, she asked who would volunteer to share their story. And a bank manager raised his hand. And looking down at the floor, for a moment, he confessed, I'm a workaholic. I put in at least 60 hours a week, minimum. And my 5-year-old son is almost always asleep by the time I get home. He decided his relationship with his 5-year-old was going to be the focus of his empathic listening. And he decided he was going to go home early, and he did. And when he went home, his son was in bed, but he wasn't asleep. So he went to the side of his bed, and he said, I was thinking about you, buddy. Knowing you and Jimmy had a fight the other day, and I was worried about what might have happened. Can you tell me what happened? And then he just listened and found out that his son and his best friend still were not talking. And then he said, it really hurts when you're mad at your best friend, doesn't it? The workaholic father paused in his story, swallowed hard, pressed on with his story, and he raised his pained eyes to the groups and humbly said, my son looked at me and said, what's wrong with you, Daddy? Are you sick or something? Because you've never listened to me before. With tears in his eyes, the father said, I realized in that moment that my father was a workaholic who never listened to me, and that I have become the same kind of father. Well, he made a decision after that point to be a different father to his son and a different husband to his wife. And that there wasn't a soul in the room in that whole group, which was a pretty large group, who didn't believe him, because he got it right then into the depth of his heart. He was not going to continue in the same way. His intention was to be present in his son's life and to put love into action by doing no harm, by not being an absentee father any longer, for changing his life and the way he lived. He was practicing ahimsa, which is nonviolence. He was doing something else. He was loving intentionally. And he was not going to continue. He was not going to unconsciously be harmful through neglect. So there's some basic principles here that I want us to focus on. Be present. Show your love. Show them that you see them. Show them that you hear them. And that what they say to you, what they're saying to you, and how they're sharing their reality with you matters to you. Everyone needs to know that. There's not a soul on the planet that doesn't need to be heard, doesn't need to be recognized that you're being present with them. And, I was a multitasker. And when I first started in ministry, I was trying to please everybody at the same time. And I remember thinking, I'm going around in circles at the end of church, and we had all these people coming at me at the same time. And I remember going, what am I going to do? How can I make this one happen and that one happen? I didn't know how to do it, and I had to grow into it. And so I remembered what Dr. Peggy Bassett used to do. She would stand with the person that is right in front of her, and she focused, and nobody could distract her. And I had to learn how to do that because I was such a people pleaser. And so as we really practice this, ahimsa, and we decide to embrace having loving intentions and loving actions, things really change and we develop greater skills. And they're skills we had never imagined that we would have the need for or that we didn't have them. And the reality is most of us don't have them, or they're not as developed as they could be. So it requires a deliberate act of will. And there's a discipline about showing up intentionally for love. So when we do it, and we all, who's fallen in love at least once in your life? Right? When we fall in love, we do this very well. We pay attention to every word they say. And no one is more beautiful than this person. And I'm madly in love. They could do no harm. They could do no wrong. He's absolutely perfect. And we talk about it, and we're enthralled with it. That kind of attention, unfortunately, doesn't last that long. And if any of you have been married, you've watched it kind of disappear to the point where it gets to a level of just tolerance. And nobody wants to just be tolerated or barely tolerated because we don't. So I love what one of the stories that I'm going to tell you shortly was about. My girlfriend, like I said, was a trainer, and she was at a training this time, and there was a man in the group whose daily practice was to keep love alive in his family. And every day on his way home, I think this is brilliant. I mean, it's so simple, it's brilliant. He pulled his car over just a few blocks from his home, and he would focus completely on his wife. And he would remember what his wife had spoken to him about that morning. And he got really clear about what they talked about. And then, once he was clear about that, he thought about his kids. And he focused on what they talked about in the morning or the night before. And he got really clear about what they wanted from him. When he was absolutely ready and to be fully present for them, he started his car and drove the last little bit to his house. And that is the way he was able to keep centered and available to his family. As you can probably guess, the love in his family was a very high on the scale. And he was so present. Now, many of us were zombies at the end of our day. I know that I was. I was exhausted, and I wanted to put my feet up, and I really didn't want to be the one to cook, but I still had to cook because I was married to a doctor, and he'd come home even more spaced than me. And so I would pamper him, but then I would be exhausted, even more exhausted. So I didn't know how to practice self-care. And unfortunately, when we don't, if we're not putting love's intention into action, our relationships deteriorate because we're not taking care of the people that we love the most. And that is so important. And what I'm trying to do here today is that I want to have these stories give you an opportunity to look at your own life, in your own relationships, and where in your life and where in your relationships do you need to step up a bit and put the power of love's intention into greater action. So I want to share this. Some of the musicians here will get a kick out of this one. This is another story that about having a ritual. Like this other man stopped by this, in the neighborhood close to his home and stopped his car, and his ritual was to get present. This man was married to a lady, and every night, he was a bass player, by the way, and every night they would take walks. And they'd go to the edge of a lake, which was right near their house, and she was a little lady, and he was a very tall, big man. And he would take his bass and play it with her in between the bass. She was a little girl. He probably wouldn't be able to do that with me, but but he'd play the bass with her in between the instrument and himself. So then he would play this bass, and the vibration tuned them both into what he was playing and to each other as they watched the sun go down. Isn't that romantic? I never had anyone like that in my life. I had some musicians in my life, but not like that. But their commitment, they played me songs. My ex-husband used to sing me. That was always wonderful. So the reality is that whatever practice we have to put into place, we have to find something. With my dog, I squeeze his little toys, and he knows that when I squeeze that, we're playing. And, it's just something we've done for 10 years, and he's used to it, and he wants it. So I give it to him, because I have a very spoiled little Shih Tzu, and he's adorable, and I am madly in love with him. So I want to love my loved ones. I want to provide what they need, and I still have to take care of myself. So that balance is really important. So what we have to ask ourselves when we're looking at love's intention in our lives toward ourselves and others, what is needed now? What is called for now? What is the universe screaming at us to give that we're not giving? Or maybe we just don't know. We have to ask. Jesus said, ask, seek, and knock. Ask them the questions that we might have, or get the conversation going. Seek to find out what is needed from you and for you. And knock on the very doors that are waiting for us to walk through. And they're just a delusion of separation between us and our loved ones. And we can open those doors and those windows. Treatment does that. Prayer does that. But deliberate and conscious intention, love's intention can break through and open that doorway up. It will, I promise you. All you need to do is keep your intention in place. It may ask you to do things that are beyond your comfort zone. Probably will. I can just tell you that, because I'm always trying to do that, and frequently things come up right in my face. Well, gosh, I really didn't want that. God, can you change the order here? So, my complaining spirit might get riled up. But the reality is that in order for us to really have something different in our lives, we have to do something different, or we have to be something different. It just doesn't change all by itself. So I want you to know that I absolutely support you, and I look forward to hearing the shifts that happen in your relationships, because they will happen. It's an absolute given. Just like who does treatment and doesn't expect a result? If you do, you won't get it because you're knowing, right? We know that. So we have to treat and move our feet and know that we will get results. And the doors open and great things happen. So now that you've considered what it means to be present in all your relationships, can I see a show of hands if you're willing to do something more to deepen your love's intention with your relationships? I hope that's 100%. Yeah? Well, most. Okay? So I'm looking forward to hearing about some of those things. If you're so inclined, write to me. I'll give you my business card, and I'd really like to hear what you did. But in the meantime, we're going to close with an affirmation. This is a great book, Affirmations for Self-Healing by Swami Kriyananda. And it's about love, and then we're going to do this affirmation 5 times. One finds love not by being loved, but by loving. We can never know love if we try to draw others to ourselves, nor can we find it by centering our love in them. For love is infinite. It is never ours to create. We can only channel it from the source of infinity to all whom we meet. The more we forget ourselves in giving to others, the better we can understand what love really is. And the more we love as channels for God's love, the more we can understand it is the one love in the universe. So the affirmation, I want you to repeat after me. The first time, we're going to do it with great intention and great vigor. Like, say it, don't scream, but just a little bit behind that, I will love others as extensions of my own self.
I will love others as extensions of my own self.
And of the love I feel from God.
And of the love I feel from God.
Now, at a little bit more normal voice, I will love others as extensions of my own self.
I will love others as extensions of my own self.
And of the love I feel from God.
And of the love I feel from God.
Now, in a whisper, I will love others as extensions of my own self. Love others as extensions of my own self. And of the love I feel from God. And now silently, with your focus on your third eye, I will love others as extensions of my own self. And of the love I feel from God. And one last time, focused on the third eye and superconscious mind, I will love others as extensions of my own self and of the love I feel from God. And a prayer to close with, O Infinite One, make me a channel for thy love. Through me, reach out to sow seeds of love in barren hearts everywhere. I've enjoyed being with all of you. Namaste.